I'm your host, Scott Garber, and today we're excited to welcome our next guest, John Kauffman, to the show. John, my man, happy Tuesday. How are you doing today?
I feel so good I can hardly stand it.
Ooh, that's what I'm talking about. That's the remarkable energy we like, John. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And John, just give everybody a little background. Where are you coming in from today?
Okay, I live in the Baltimore metro area, just north of DC and west, about 10 minutes of Baltimore, Ellicott City.
Ellicott City.
Where I
Ellicott
reside.
City.
Yeah,
Never heard of it, but excited to learn more about it. So
come on down.
And John, we're excited, man. This is the first time we're kicking off the Remarkable Show. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to be focusing on remarkable people and their remarkable stories and how all that culminates to make a remarkable impact in the world that we're living in. And John, it's 2021. We need some remarkable stuff, man. It's been crazy. How's this year treating you so far?
It's what we're making out of it. It's not necessarily how the year is treating me. It's what we're taking and what we're going with,
Yeah.
So like we were all built for a time as this. We've been training our whole lives for 2020 and 2021. And like we were saying, things weren't necessarily better before. They weren't. But if you add up everything, the good and the bad, we're still better off than I feel like we've been in the past, as long as we are growing and have that mindset.
I couldn't agree more.
This year and last year and the year before, if we're growing, then we're better when we add it all up.
And I mean, look, this game's changing, right? Like it changes every single day, and we have to be able to be nimble and agile to change with it, right? And I think that a lot of that comes from preparation, right? If you got chewed up and spit out on the right side of this, you were prepared, or you were thinking about how to push the needle forward before the pandemic hit. So, John, let's go back a little bit. I want to get to know you a little bit. Are you from Ellicott City, Maryland, or where did this whole journey start for you?
I'm from Greenville, South Carolina, and I grew up in the Northeast, mainly Pennsylvania, kind of like in the Poconos area.
Okay.
Clark Summit, Scranton, Pennsylvania area. If you guys ever seen The Office, that's kind of like the area I grew up in. Everybody's like, oh, The Office. Right.
Put it on the map.
I grew up mainly around there, and joined the Army when I was in my early 20s, and I've been involved in the military, either in an active duty or a National Guard component for many years.
Wow. Well, we're gonna unpack that, right? Because I think a lot of remarkable things happen there, and they say diamonds are made right in this pressure moment, right? So I'm excited to sort of hear what that was like when the pressure was on. I guess my first question for you, right, when we talk about the military, before we do anything, thank you so much for your service. Greatly appreciated for us to embrace all these amenities that you provide. So, what made you sort of decide, hey, I want to go ahead and join the Army when you were younger?
I knew I could take it.
Ooh.
It wasn't that so many other people can't do it. It's just that they won't do it. And I just knew I had the grit to do it. I spent a lot of time growing up with old folks, both grandparents on both sides of the family. And there was just a different kind of grit with them. So I just felt like I could handle it and it'd be a good fit for me. And that, that's what I was kind of walking in those footsteps.
Man, big boots to fill there. Now I have to ask you, because everybody who's listening to this, John is actually brothers with my business partner, Nathan. And that's how we got all roped into this incredible, remarkable show. So did Nathan have the grit to go ahead and do it, or give me a little inside dirt on him?
We all have a different kind of grit. And we're all made for something our whole lives. Like I'm saying, we prepared for something. And, while, people thank me for my service, I thank people back, because we're each playing a role on a very big stage. And it's vitally important that we're all playing our role, whatever it is. And I don't really even believe that mine is better than yours or, anybody else's, except that we're playing our role. And it's so incredible that each one of us, which is why I'm always encouraging people to follow their purpose. I don't necessarily, the world doesn't need to be a duplication of me. I certainly don't want that. But we all got to be living up to our best selves so we can follow that purpose. And I'm following mine, and I'm just trying to light a fire into other people's, hearts and souls, so they'll just follow theirs.
Isn't that something? And it's so
you're doing
funny,
your
John.
thing,
You got to lean into who you are, right? Like we all bring a unique unique pieces to this puzzle. And I think
Right.
that instead of trying to mold people into what you want them to be, it's, hey, lean into that self, be unapologetically yourself, and we'll figure out the way to build you in, right? So
Right.
I love that. Now talk to me, because that seems a little counterintuitive to the military, right? So you
Yeah.
go into boot camp, you go and it's all like, hey, we have to be one unit. It's not as much about individuality. How
Right.
did you balance, sort of finding who John was while also, serving your country and being a part of this, larger unit with the military?
For sure. I mean, we're all, bringing people from all different walks of life and backgrounds, and it's something I've always found awesome about the military is you meet people you'd have never met outside of that situation, because they take boys and girls from all over the United States, from all different backgrounds, socioeconomic, racial backgrounds, and we throw them all together and say, okay, figure out this X, Y, and Z problem. And then everybody gets together. So it's a really cool example of people working together to problem solve.
And we need that, right? Like, I mean,
For
the
sure.
we need to lean in on community
Hmm.
and that tribal mentality.
Yeah.
It's so true. I feel like, John, my background's in sports, and we've seen this in the sports lane as well. It's become hyper specialized, and we're not as much leaning on the whole, like the holistic approach. It's very much, where can I carve out my lane, self prophecy. And so, really interesting perspective there of sort of what that sum of the whole can do, when we're trying to move mountains here. Now, John, I got to ask, right? So much of this game is about perspective, and you've been in the military for 20 years. So I can only
Mhm.
imagine the perspective that you've gained. Are there any places or times when you serve that stick out to you that have made an impact as you transition those skill sets into, the business that you're running now?
Right. What I've come to find out is everywhere I've been in the world, people are really all the same. They have basic needs of shelter and livelihood and taking care of their families. Um, and we're really all the same. Um, everywhere in the world, we do things a little bit differently, but fundamentally, those things all line up anywhere you go in the world. If
I'm just gonna
if you're living in a hut, I remember being in the Sinai, and the Bedouins there, they live a different way, uh, but we're all looking for kind of the same thing, and we're really no different at all. And the world's a much smaller place than you think. I mean, I've lived in 6 countries. I've been to nearly 50. You know, uh, Sat down at a lot of tables, sat down at a lot of floors and couches. Met with leaders. Um, and it's really incredible to see this human dynamic and how everybody lives theirs a little bit differently, but still all the same stuff from the same place in the heart.
that I almost just want to take a pause for a second, because I think that people need to hear that message loud and clear. Whether it's around the world,
Mhm.
whether it's here domestically in the US, we're all just people, right? And
Yeah,
and John, I'm going to make
100%.
light of this a little bit, but I don't want it to get off track. But when I
Mhm.
poop, I wipe my butt just the same way you do or anybody else does across this world, right? And so it's one of those notions where I feel like we're so hyper judgmental, and we're so quick um to 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 cut people off when really they're playing the same game, right? The spectrum of difference is really not that much. And as I continue to gain that perspective, in my whole life, I'm noticing that, right? And it's really important that we lean into that message, right? It comes from the heart, and we all have one of those, right? And so, John, that's powerful stuff right there. Now talk to me a little bit, right? We're gonna transition, because my focus, I love to talk about the athlete as they go from, playing days into what we'll call civilian world, right? Or the real world. John, what was that transition like for you when you came from the military and had to go and pivot and play a different game and start a business?
Yeah. I mean, fundamentally, like I'm very disciplined and organized. I like organizing people. I like following a plan and moving forward on a plan. So I'm very focused, and I'm very organized, and that's stuff that was developed and really polished down. Let's say through my experiences in the military, just working. I've never been the fastest to learn, but I'm generally the hardest working person. So, slow off the start, but generally get there maybe further over time.
Well, good thing this
Because I
this
just don't
life is a
quit.
marathon, man. So it's
It's
not
a
a sprint.
marathon for sure.
So, okay, so you come out the gates a little like a
Mhm.
little bit a little slow, right? But I mean, I know, like, I mean, I've been following you, I've been following Nate. Like, I mean, I know that there's success that goes ahead and you know, that follows there. One of the things that I think our listeners would really value from is as you were coming out of the gates and stumbling, when you hit a roadblock or when you hit, you know, like sort of that, oh man, I don't know if I can push forward. Where, like, how do you find seventh gear, right? Where do you go to make sure that you that harness that grit and then make it, you know, fruitful going forward?
Well, I've studied Stoicism and philosophy for many years, and I'm reminded, by Marcus Aurelius and Seneca talking about obstacles. They aren't things to go around in the path. They are the path. There is no you're and my pastor Corey Barnes says you're either in trouble, going into trouble, or just coming out of trouble. So so
That's it.
that's what it is. So right now things are pretty good. So I'm getting I'm getting ready for some trouble, because
Yeah.
we've called forth great things and we're doing great things. There's always going to be resistance. It's like weightlifting or anything else. You're pushing against something that's going to make you stronger. That resistance builds resiliency, thicker skin, stronger, whether it's, mentally or physically, it's always going to take resistance to grow. Just like a bird cracking out of a shell. They
Mm.
got to do that, and you can't do that for the bird, otherwise it's not going to be strong. We have our own battles and journeys to fight, and we don't really appreciate things that come easy. I know I don't.
No.
So
Well, I mean, it's the whole notion of the lottery, right? Like, I
mhm,
mean, the statistic of folks that go and win millions of dollars and then are bankrupt within 5 years, I think goes
yep,
back to that notion, right? If you don't
mhm,
embrace the journey, as Kobe Bryant said, right? And the
mhm,
journey is the destination. So
yep,
as we embrace that, then that to me unlocks the code of life, right? We get to
yep,
start living again. And just because
yep,
life is hard doesn't necessarily mean it's not fun or fruitful or prosperous. Like,
right,
we wouldn't have diamonds if there weren't for pressure,
right,
right? So
right,
so I love that, man. I think that's really, really well said. And this is totally inadvertent, but you talk about
mhm,
a bird breaking out of their shell.
right,
John, so this is the 17-year mark of cicada season. So
right.
they're all gonna
I
hatch
heard
this
that.
year. We got 1 trillion cicadas over the next like 5 months that are gonna, you know, hatch here in
Right.
the United States, which is gonna be that's going to be a remarkable sight right there.
And I
So
remember that 17 years ago. This is actually, so I'm 41. This will be my third, I guess. Well, they're about close, or a second. I
yeah,
need to take off my shoes, fingers and toes. But I remember the last one. That'll be interesting. I'm just glad spring and summer's on the way.
ooh, man, I hear you. And real quick,
I'll
just
deal with some cicadas.
fun fact for the listeners, they said that there will be an average of 1.5 million cicadas per square mile in 15 different states here in the US. Just
Wow,
let that sink in.
that's enormous.
And we think that we're the biggest thing here in this world. Come on now.
Yes, sir.
All right, John, so let's transition, right? Your story is remarkable and I feel like we're just scratching the surface. Let's talk about the business lens, right? Because I'm excited for you to tell everybody what you've been cultivating, building, and how it sort of plugs into this remarkable show and remarkable thing we're building here.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I founded the real time app a couple of years ago. It's been a long time coming. It started off as just an idea, and like entrepreneurs, we find a need and we fill it. We're constantly looking and having a perspective of what are the needs and how can I fill that need. So I saw something in media and in culture where people didn't have the ability to see really where and when an event occurs, not accurately. And I started, it all started from journaling, asking better questions of myself, unpacking ideas, and then bringing up some conclusions. And so I asked myself, what could I change, what could I affect, um as if I could, anything. I would just write down anything down of just like problems in the world. So I wrote down problems in the world: hunger, shelter, wars, things, all this kind of stuff. And then I thought, what can I affect right now? What can I affect in the future? and then I started writing down things we could agree upon. And the thing that I thought that everybody could agree on is that there's not accuracy in media reporting. I think everybody, left, right, middle, up, down, sideways, would say, they don't necessarily, either to some degree, trust the accuracy of media.
I'd agree.
And right. So I thought, well, what can I do to fill that gap? Well, if I could add the verification of time and location of an event, that could take an extra element of spin out of how we understand information and provide fidelity of information. But wow, what's fidelity of information? Just accuracy, just something when you see something that's a brand, you can trust.
Yep.
And I feel like there's my opinion anyway, like there's very little trust, or it's been degraded. It's just not very much. If we just took a poll, we'd say, yeah, medium to low, let's say. I thought, well, that's a big gap.
Especially now.
How can I fill that? And then and include everybody, even people. And here's the thing, I include people that I disagree with.
That's a big thing to highlight right there, right? This isn't just a bias. This isn't just a one side of the fence. Again, holistic seems to be a through line here, John. Keep rocking. This is really interesting.
It's got to be. It's got to be. If I really want to serve the world, I got to be willing to serve people that we're just not lining up on stuff. And that's fine, because what I've noticed over the years is I've changed some perspective. I've changed the way I think. I've changed some really strong opinions on some stuff that maybe 10 and 20 years ago I would have been completely different on. And people were patient with me. So I'm trying to be at least half as that patient with other people that maybe they may not be on the same journey, or maybe that's just where they're at. So,
interesting.
Accepting them where they're at is great, because I've been accepted where I'm at, and people are still accepting where I'm at right now. And I have a ways to go. I know we all do.
So real quick, I want to go take a sidebar real quick, because I've gone through a similar journey myself. And this, we talk about growth in this romanticized, like lens, but it's really hard. Right. And I think there were a couple components for me as I was growing that perspective. But I'm curious, John, one of the things that worked for me was replacing expectation with intention. So as you started to go ahead and build this machine, did you have expectations that weren't being met and you had to sort of peel them back? Or what was that sort of coming out of the gates journey like for you?
Yeah, expectation. That is a real funny and a slippery thing. My expectations for the app is, to launch, to serve, to provide this service, to people. But as far as like expectation for people, what I'm learning is I can't make anybody do anything. I mean, I'm barely fitting up to my own expectations of myself. And I always say, like, someday I hope I'm as good as I think I am. So why can't I make anybody do anything else? Nobody. I can make anybody do anything. I can lead from the front. I can lead by example through actions, not words, but deeds. And then maybe some people can come up alongside or try to outrun me, and that's fine too. But I can't push or pull anybody to a goal or to a place that they don't want to be, because I was just saying this the other day. When you try to force somebody to think a certain way, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. You can't wrestle anybody, and the harder that right, and the harder you push, the more we're going to dig our heels in, even if we know we're wrong. Like down deep. I've in the past, I've cut off my own nose to spite my face, because I would have never given an inch to somebody that said I was wrong. And the more they said I was wrong, the more I dug in my heels, even knowing deep down I was wrong. So I'm not trying to force or push or pull or coerce or anything like that. Just lead from the front, just work my tail off and see who comes up alongside.
Ooh, I love that. And
because everybody is trying to change the world. You're not going to change the world. You're never going to change the world. I can change myself and my immediate here, my immediate community. I can affect that, but only through influence. But forget trying to change the world. You're not going to change the world unless we start right here.
And man, now we're going to go to something that I'm uber passionate about, right? But it's living where your feet are, and
Mhm.
just
Grow where you
being
planted.
unapologetically yourself, embracing yourself. But that's not so easy, right? We always don't know who we are. And shout out to
Mhm.
my buddy Eric Cusin, and John, he told me that we all have to sit in our own shit before we can go ahead and move forward, right? Because until
For
you
sure.
deal with your own
Mhm.
subconscious and demons, you can't successfully lead, you can't
100%.
holistically guide, right? So we have to be whole with ourselves. And I'm going to take a peel back.
Mhm.
You talked about journaling earlier, right?
Mhm.
I'm curious,
Yeah.
did that start in the military, just like as a cathartic exercise, or when did you pick up this journaling habit?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I got a counselor probably 10 years after my last combat deployment, and a shrink, right?
Yep.
And she recommended that I journal. And I started that in 2015, finally realizing that I needed to change. Uh, so she said, you need to journal. I highly recommend you journal. So I started journaling and unpacking a lot of stuff. And you're talking about acceptance, just some deep seated self-loathing and, not accepting yourself and, you know, these insecurities you're just stewing on and whatever else. There are 100 things.
Yep.
But journaling was a huge part of the growth. I mean, if you read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, he didn't write that for the world. He was the last best empire leader of Rome, before it just fell into ruin. And that was basically his journal. His meditations were nothing but his published journals. Kind of an inside look at his thoughts on how to lead and what not to do and to do. And it's very personal. I recommend everybody reads that. But that was just his journal. Marcus Aurelius, the last great emperor of Rome, before
Yeah.
it just all went sideways.
It's funny. I mean, John, there's a lot of parallels as I dig into this from the military transition and athlete transition, right? And I find that journaling to be a medium of it's just your safe space, right? You can
Mhm.
talk, you can, and it makes it real. And I have found once I made it real, then I can go ahead and own it and then open up, Pandora's box to give back to the world, right? And so I want to dig into your head sort of as a founder, CEO, as you're building something. One of the things that's been really on my mind is how we build a team around us. And so I'm
Mhm.
curious with you, do you look more for the human side of things and the personality and the raw talent, or do you look more at a resume and like their skill sets when trying to build that team as a founder?
I I have looked more currently to just an alignment of mindset than raw skills, because there's an art and a science to everything. And a lot of people have one or not the other. And some people in rare cases have both.
Mm.
But just being able to connect the dots, I'm always saying like, somebody can be very smart, but if they can't connect the dots and they can't think critically in complex situations, it really doesn't matter what their pedigree and their resume says they can do with the science. If they don't have the art of connecting the dots, it doesn't matter what they've been trained in or what their hard skills in, because we'll always say that the ability to just make that gap is always going to be by soft skills. It's
Yeah.
always soft skills. That's
Always.
the big one. So find people with soft skills, that have the hard skills too. But soft skills and being able to work with others is the biggest thing. And I'm not talking about nice, because that's generally the excuse for somebody who's lazy.
Yeah.
I always hear the biggest excuse, like, yeah, but so and so, but he's nice. I'm like, well, yeah, what I want is results. So ultimately, it's results.
Yep.
But you can't. Can you work with others? And sometimes I'm as rough as a cob, like my grandpa used to say. But just being able to work along people, alongside people of, is just the way to go with those soft skills.
No, I think that's those are those transferable skills, right? You can
Mhm.
mold them. I always think about that. You can mold
Mhm.
them to
Mhm.
to be what you want, or you can teach them if you're a good leader, but
Mhm.
you can't always replace some of those soft skills. So
Right.
totally agree. And
Mhm.
it's interesting for anyone listening, HBO just put out a new documentary called Persona. Would recommend
Mm.
everyone go and look at it. And so,
100%.
John, we talk about this more in the human to human world, but adjacent, and you know this from the real-time map, there's a whole technology sector out there that operates completely different. And so it was really, it's a deep dive on the Myers-Briggs and how we're hiring based off of Myers-Briggs and not necessarily talking to the person and understanding those soft skills. So great watch, but really interesting to sort of hear that perspective there. So John, this has been so fun. I mean, a ton of remarkable things coming from your side. What's on the horizon? How do you plan to continue to make a remarkable impact and put your fingerprint on this world as we're evolving and changing quicker than ever?
My main purpose in life is always going to be reconciling culture, and I'm only ever motivated by love. So I say that a lot. So there are 100 different ways to do that, but my purpose is always going to be to connect people to each other, bridge gaps, and find solutions. We are always going to be better together. And I believe we live in a very, very divisive culture that is tearing us apart. And if they, I was saying the other day, if there were 100 people in the room, we'd have 100 different opinions on the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. I think we just need to work together in spite of in spite of me, in spite of you, in spite of everybody. We need to address some problems. Reconciliation doesn't mean we're not addressing problems. We're calling out the elephant in the room and we're talking about it. So I want to have hard conversations, good conversations, but hard conversations where we really address facts and then find solutions together. But it can't be this little camp over here and this little camp over here, because we're all spreading out, dividing. So I believe if we want to move forward as a society, and when I say society, I say all of us.
Yeah.
And that's something not everybody says. When they say all of us, they really mean just them and theirs.
Yeah.
So I say all of us. I mean everybody, actually, everybody.
Well, and John,
social media isn't that social anymore.
Nah.
We're good. Look, we're getting good. We're getting good at flexing on each other and being cool. But social media has made us way less social. When you walk out of the house, even with a mask on, and you say hello to anybody, try this. See what you get in return. You're going to get a grunt. We've degraded our social interaction on and on and on, because the interaction we're having now, is selfies in our best light, looking our best, but it's not our true selves. And we're not being real with people. In fact, I feel like we're getting less real all the time.
Well, and John, I feel like these algorithms and the way we built these social platforms, they flex on the imperfections of us as a human, right? Because what sells, at least in our Western world, and it's ad space, right? And so it's an ad-driven model to get eyeballs, and those aren't the most sexy things to talk about. They're not the most kind, gentle, community, holistic, notions. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, that's typically what sells here in the US. And so do you think that we're going to be able to evolve from where we're at right now to a more communal, bridged world between virtual and physical? Or are we going to have to sort of peel back this business model and rebuild something that is more holistic?
I think we're going to move back to a center, because, much like a rubber band, when it's stretched and released, it always wants to go back to its center. So we've moved away from the center as we understand, our society, which is this level here of people working together and being human, humans being human. And we've moved away from that. So I feel like that has moved as far away from the median level as it can go. And I think it's going to return to that as we understand an adaptation of social media and actually making it more human. And that's something I want to contribute to this experience of our life here on planet Earth. Is the real-time app tells stories. It provides geographically verifiable pictures and videos so people can own their history, get in front of their own narratives, and really share their life when and where it happens.
That's
so
it.
Make social media more social, and let's make it more accurate. Let's make it better.
I think we have to get back
and
to
let's
being
tell better
humans.
stories.
We have to get back to being humans. And I
Right.
think that there's a lot of negative, and I don't want to gloss over this. The pandemic has wreaked havoc on a lot of lives here in the US and around the world. But John, there's a notion that this was timely. The forest needed
Mhm.
to burn down. We were not in a great place, and we were going to keep kicking
Mhm.
the can down the road. And so as
Right.
we're turning the corner with this, it's really neat to see the mindset of folks that were so traditional and cut off now be more open and embracing. And so I think that there is a light, as long as it takes, folks like yourself being in the personal world and the business world saying, hey, there's a different way to have compassionate capitalism. And we don't have to be the, all hungry, almighty dollar all the time. Right. And so that's really, really, this is exciting stuff and if you're not excited listeners right now, then you might not want to listen to the rest of the episodes, because this is what it's going to be about.
Yeah.
But John, I've been so excited to ask you this question. I've had the privilege of asking professional athletes, former vets like yourself. John, if you could tell the listeners one thing you've done in your life that you would recommend they do or experience in theirs, what would that be and why?
I'd say follow your purpose. There's a voice down inside you. You may have covered it up with something, with some sort of a vice, whatever's holding you down or back. And a lot of that, the battle is always going to be of the mind. So I would encourage everybody to seek personal growth and purpose. And when I say personal growth, I think a lot of that has just moved towards narcissism. So I'm not going to talk about that because it's not me and it, personal growth again is going to be a human experience. It's alongside other people. It's how we can measure this by how well we are working with others and growing alongside other people. It's not a solo journey.
Mm.
Personal growth is the people to your left and to your right. So as we seek personal growth, I would say go for that 100%.
Aye.
But otherwise, you're just on a walk by yourself if you're not bringing people with you.
And John, I'm going to piggyback on that because I
Mhm.
love that answer. And we have a choice of the people we surround ourselves with. And
Mhm.
we're the sum of the 5 people, right? So those 5 people can be remarkable, or those 5 people might not be so good. And chances are, based on that group, that's what your perception of reality is going to look like. So, John, do you choose selectively the people you surround yourself with, or how do you build your center of trust there?
When I found my purpose, my circle got real small.
Ooh,
It got
trim the
real
fat.
small. And it's not because I cut people off. They just sort of, you know, just sort of, vanished into the sides, I guess. And they're just not around. They're
Yep.
they're still there. We're just not rocking and rolling together. So when I was around, I just noticed people just kind of falling off. Um, but when I found my purpose, the right people then got into my circle. So moving in that path can be lonely, but I don't believe it's going to be lonely forever.
Mm.
I people talk about, oh, it's lonely at the top. Well, make more room. There's plenty of room.
Ooh, make more room. That's what I'm talking about.
Make more room. There's plenty of room. This isn't a small table. We're building a bigger table. Uh, there's plenty of room, and that's why we were talking about before about everybody finding their purpose and where they're at, and it doesn't have to look the same as yours or mine or whatever, but we have something to do.
Yep.
And when people say, you're one in a million. No, 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 no. You're not even one in a billion. You're the only one like you on planet Earth. There's only one Scott Garber. There's only one John Kauffman. Whoever's watching, there's only one of you. And you have unique giftings, you have unique talents, you have a life that only you have lived, and it has made you the person you are. Just stop sitting on your talent.
Yeah.
So get after it. You got talents. You may not think you do, and you think you're average or whatever, but there's something remarkable inside of you that you just need to dig through and find and share with the world. And you're not serving yourself now, you're serving your own interests, and you're sure not serving the planet or anything like that by just sleeping on those talents and dreams. So bring those
Ah.
dreams out and get after them, because we only got so much time.
and
So
and
get
that
after
and
it.
that's where I was going to go with it, John. And I think this will wrap it up. Is we're not here forever, and that's just the reality of this time. And I've had a near-death experience in my life, and that has opened my eyes to, hey, if I know this can be taken from me at any moment, why the hell wouldn't I lean into this and give it everything I got with just the person that I am? Whether you like me or not, this is what I contribute to the table there. And so, oh, John, I mean, I'm fired up, man. Like, I mean, I feel like
Yeah,
I
man.
could talk to you for hours.
Hey, let's do it.
Oh,
Episode number
man.
2 coming soon.
Oh, I love it. Well, I mean, John, I think this has been an incredible episode. I mean, you clearly just embrace what we're about here at the Remarkable Show. You're a remarkable person. You're telling remarkable stories and ultimately making a remarkable impact. So, John, if any of our listeners want to go ahead and find more information about the Real Time app or any of the other work you're doing, where can they find you on social?
We're at the Real Time app on Instagram, the Real Time app on Twitter, Facebook. We have the iOS version, and we're coming out with the Android version soon. And we're updating the current version to make it to serve people better, more accurately, better, bigger, better, faster, to serve America and the world, with telling their stories and providing digital advocacy, you know, so people can have that in their hands, when what they have a lot of times is just a cell phone.
I love that. Well, if you guys enjoyed this episode, I can guarantee that you're going to enjoy the Real Time app. So be sure to download it. Really, really exciting things. John, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks,
As
Scott.
you alluded to, this is just the first of many, seeing that Nate's probably going to press my hand to make sure that you keep getting on here. But man, I have enjoyed getting to know you, and, Remarkable Show listeners, keep being remarkable, keep making impacts, and we will see you guys next week.